Hi, I'm Dr. Kate Shanahan, family physician and author. And today I'm going to make sense of a question I got from a patient this week. Dr. Kate, I've been avoiding seed oils for several years. How can I still have plaque in my arteries? Let's make it make sense. So what my patient is really getting at is this question: can plaque ever clear? Once it forms, is it there forever? And I'm going to tell you right now that the answer is it's probably there forever. But there's still something very, very important that makes the difference between whether the plaque is going to give you a heart attack or not. So let's dive into that. To understand what's going on when we have plaque in our body, let's take a look at this picture here. So let's start in the upper left here with this picture that says lumen. So what we're looking at is a cross section of an artery that has this yellow stuff here. This is fatty inflamed plaque. This is the very early stage of plaque. And what this slide is showing is something very, very important, that plaque can develop in two different directions. The direction on the top here, which is the good one, where we end up with stable plaque, and the direction on the bottom, which is the bad one, where we end up with a heart attack. And this image is showing that what a heart attack looks like is a little bit different than probably what a lot of people realize, because a lot of people assume that when you have a heart attack, what's happened is this fat has actually filled up more and more and more, and the fat has blocked off the artery, but that hardly ever happens. What happens most often is that the plaque actually is unstable and inflammatory, and it breaks, and the word for that is, they call it rupture. And when it ruptures, what this is showing is the fat is kind of ballooning into the blood flow here, and this causes a heart attack because it causes a blood clot, a sudden disruption of blood flow. And when the blood flow stops suddenly like this, that is what kills heart tissue and causes a heart attack. So before that happens, the body desperately tries to do something about this inflamed fat here. And what it does is shown in this part of the slide. It forms microcalcifications. And you can see these little tiny, tiny little blue dots here. If you look really close, those are calcifications. Calcium is how the body stabilizes something weak. In fact, our bones are the ultimate endpoint of that. We've got a lot of calcium in our bones. Without calcium, our bones would just be little blobs of jello, literally. It's because our bones are collagen and jello is collagen. Isn't that cool? Anyway, so back to the slide. So what happens is your body tries to put so much calcium in here that it's all blocked up with calcium, like it is in this last part of the slide, and it can't rupture anymore, and it will not do this bad thing down here, and it will not cause a heart attack. So that is why I say that plaque probably doesn't really resolve, but it probably doesn't really have to. And I have to use the word probably because we don't have any good studies of people who have followed the kind of diet that I think is the best way to reverse plaque if it is humanly possible, which is really an open question. Now, some of you may be remembering a very powerful story from a plant-based vegan doctor named Dr. Esselstyn. Um, he showed us a picture from a patient's heart where the artery was almost squeezed shut, and he was like almost dying of heart disease. And Dr. Esselstyn put him on a very strict vegan diet that had no oils, including no seed oils, which is, I think, very key here. And what happened was that a short while later, that same patient's artery was opened up a little bit more. And it wasn't totally opened, but it definitely showed improvement. And that was Really stunning. And in fact, Dr. Esselstyn kind of stunned the world because he was one of the first people to show that this could happen with diet. Because prior to that, everybody assumed you needed to have like a catheterization or an angioplasty or some kind of a stent, something physical to physically remove that plaque and open up the artery. But Dr. Esselstyn showed that wasn't true. Now, I want to explain that you do not have to follow a vegan diet to make this happen, and that this happens, in fact, all the time without following a very special diet at all. This slide, which we've all seen, shows us what everybody thinks about with arteriosclerotic plaque, which is we go from a normal healthy artery with plenty of blood flowing through the middle here, which is called the lumen, and the plaque slowly developing more and bigger, and gradually we get a blood clot. Like it always gets worse. This slide actually reinforces that idea too. The lumen here, which is where the blood flows, it's showing how as we go from inflamed to microcalcified to macrocalcified, this good stabilized plaque, look, the lumen is smaller. So that's reinforcing that it always goes in one direction. But that is not actually accurate. And by the way, this is from a professional cardiology journal, and they're showing it somewhat inaccurately. Let me show you a more accurate depiction of this process. Let's go to another picture. This picture is from another journal. And what it's showing is that when the plaque is inflamed, the inflamed plaque can, in fact, shrink a little bit. So again, here what we have on the left is a normal, healthy vessel with plenty of blood flowing through the lumen, where the blood flows, the tunnel in the artery. And we go over here to the vulnerable plaque. Now, this slide is the exact same process as we saw over here with this picture and this picture. It's kind of the two combined into one. So this vulnerable plaque here, we have that the lumen is smaller now. We've got all this plaque. That makes sense. But what I want you to pay attention to is this brown stuff, because this brown stuff does shrink down, you see? This brown stuff is the most inflammatory, most dangerous plaque. And through time, as the body, very smart body, smartly packs calcium all around this thing, it manages to shrink down this vulnerable, dangerous stuff. And as it shrinks down, that creates more space for the blood to flow. Isn't that great? So we have a natural improvement in blood flow in this artery that happens all the time. You do not have to follow a vegan oil-free diet. And these vegan oil-free diets, by the way, are free of olive oil and avocado oil and coconut oil and all oils. So they're very restrictive and not very fun. So to get back to my patient's question, can you clear your plaques? The real answer is you don't have to. What you want to do is stabilize your plaques. What you want to do is make sure that you do not go from an inflamed or microcalcified plaque down here to a heart attack. What you want to do is instead help your body pack calcium on there as fast as possible to stabilize the inflammatory plaque, and at the same time, increase your blood flow. And how do you do that? Now I want to show you what you need to do if you want to stabilize your plaque. Here's how I've been recommending to my patients for the past 25 years to stabilize their plaque. And actually, this improves pretty much. There's a lot of good side effects of this. You're going to also reverse your insulin resistance, slow down the aging process. I mean, this is really the answer to a lot of health problems. And it's very simple to understand, kind of hard to do, but let's go through it. So I want you to avoid seed oils, meaning the hateful eight oils. Not all oils are bad, only the hateful eight are. I have lots of information about that on my website. I want you also to avoid most protein powders. especially the whey protein powders and the soy protein powders. Some protein powders are okay. The bone broth powders are okay. Also very important, I want you to limit your sugar and your refined carbohydrates. You don't have to go zero sugar or zero carb, but I really want you to cut way down on those because a lot of us are eating more than we realize, more than we need, and it's empty calories. It's not helping our health. And finally, you got to quit smoking because cigarette smoke has toxins that also can inflame our arteries and promote plaque. And in fact, smokers who eat very low fat can have the exact same inflammatory fat building up in their arteries. The process of inflammation is the same whether you smoke or not. And seed oils are the worst thing in the food supply, promoting plaques the fastest. All right, well, I really hope that this information helped you to make sense of plaque reversal. Now, if you have plaque yourself and you need more help, then please come to my website. This is where you can make an appointment to see me. And I would love to meet you in person.